Hey guys, welcome to Woodshop 101. This is episode number 130 for June 18th, 2018. On today's show, we're going to talk about shop moving tips and tricks. I'm Drew Short of the Rockin' H Woodshop, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Jeremy Crawford of the Countryside Workshop, and our guest host, Paul Jackman from Jackman Works. Sam is absent, unfortunately, again, this particular episode. She is just running behind on a few things and needs to get caught up, so we are going to carry on without her. So how you guys doing?
Doing pretty awesome.
Great.
What about you?
Not too bad myself. Today was kind of my day off. We recorded last night, and I kind of took today off since I just finished a project. So let's just say I lounged with my daughter today.
When are you going to get started on the next door?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
I got everything in the shop. I went and got wood day before yesterday, and tomorrow's going to start the build process for the next client. So
Nice. I'll be hopefully pulling a shop day all day tomorrow, and if the rain can hold out, I'll be throwing some spray lacquer on a couple projects that are just sitting in here waiting to have a clear enough day to spray.
just as long as it's not raining.
After
I've had that episode, just spraying while it's raining.
After I pull the gun apart tonight, because with all the craziness of last night, I ended up leaving spray lacquer in my gun.
Oh, yeah, no, that's not good.
However, I did flush it today with lacquer thinner, and it sprayed lacquer thinner just fine. Mainly because the lacquer thinner would reactivate the lacquer. But I'm going to go ahead and pull it apart tonight and just give it a good cleaning just to make sure that I'm not going to have any snafus when I go to spray.
Well, I'll tell you that you will have a snafu because I left lacquer thinner in mine after just cleaning it out with it. And, remember how I said lacquer thinner kind of is tacky after it sets for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
And it clogged my fan jets. So I ended up having to take it apart anyway.
Yeah.
And clean it all out with mineral spirits. So.
We'll talk about that. That's gonna be our after show topic. Talking about
talk about your gun.
Yeah.
So before we get started, we want to thank our patrons: Devin, Richter, Sean McHenry, Carl Mose, Neil Sims, Eric Rhoten, John Ramminger or Ramminger. I'm gonna have to figure out what that is.
Maybe
and Josh
voicemail it.
Yeah, he should. Call it in, John. If you would like to support the show, you can head on over to woodshop101podcast.com/listen. Find the show notes for today's episode, and there will be links for small one-time donations and reoccurring donations. If you want to become a patron to our campaign, then head on over to patreon.com/woodshop101. You can also purchase Woodshop 101 podcast t-shirts, hoodies, and custom rev marker packs with the Woodshop 101 logo. To do that, you can head on over to countrysideworkshop.com/shop for the link. So like we said, this episode, and this is our fast and loose episode, so we're not really going to do a lot of formalities with this. It's going to be straight into the topic. And like I said, that topic was talking about shop moving tips and tricks. And we know that Paul and even you, Jeremy, have moved shops pretty recently. And just some things that you guys have done to get those moved in a timely fashion, as well as sometimes a profitable fashion can happen, I suppose. And if there are things that our viewers have come across when moving, you guys can also send us some feedback through our voicemails and emails to kind of help out some other people, things that you have incurred. So what have you guys done in the past that have just really worked out for you when moving your shops? I guess we can go with you, Paul.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd carry the conversation, Drew. I don't have much input.
I haven't moved much.
Yeah, well, I've moved my shop twice in the past 2 years, actually. So you learn quick out of necessity just how to keep stuff organized and transportable to a point. Kind of plan stuff ahead and shop furniture ahead so that it's adaptable and modular and things like that, so it can fit in new spaces, which also benefits the current shop because I can keep it a lot more organized just as it is.
I do like the modular thing that you were talking about, because whenever I've made a lot of the things that are in my shop currently, I made them with a possible move in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't glue everything together. It's all screwed together. So like my table saw cabinet, every one of the cabinet pieces are separate. So I can take it all apart in pieces and move it a little bit easier. And my assembly table is the same way. So I guess even if you're not planning a move, it's always wise to make your things with that in mind, because you never know when you're going to have to pick up and go somewhere.
Yeah, or just that, and like we were talking earlier, Drew. You know, you were talking about you moved everything out to put some epoxy floor down. Well, it dramatically makes things harder when things aren't as mobile. And I understand not everything can be mobile, especially if you got larger cabinet saw and you didn't invest in the mobile base. But being able to move things in a relatively easier fashion, I think, is the biggest key to having ease of use of moving. There's definitely things that aren't as mobile in my shop, and it was a pain, especially things like my planer. I have a lunchbox planer, but I got one of the last versions that Steel City Toolworks put out before they closed down, and the thing weighs like 98 pounds, and I don't have it on any kind of mobile base. So to move that was extremely difficult, and especially to put it into a trailer. So every time I've moved, I've used like a U-Haul trailer, and they're only like 5 feet tall, so you can't really stand up in them. So you're like crunched over trying to carry a 100 pound planer and place it without knocking around. It gets pretty difficult. It's pretty tiresome on your body. So, I would say probably the biggest tip and one that I'm hoping when I move again is to have a trailer or some means large enough to fit your tools in your shop comfortably, because I've had to cram every single time I've moved, because the largest U-Haul makes it a 6x12, and with a growing shop, a 6x12 quickly gets too small. So hopefully next move I'll have a 7x14 trailer, probably 7 feet tall. So
Where are you going to store that?
well, I won't store it anywhere here, but when I move, who knows? But I have big plans. I've had it for a while that I've wanted to get like a 7x14 enclosed, like maybe a not a gooseneck, a V-nose trailer, and put some cabinets and stuff in there and kind of have it for like a mobile shop. So when I do like installations and things like that, I don't have to worry about packing things here and there. I can have like my own like dedicated set of tools in that, or maybe keep like some of my mechanic stuff, like all my wrenches and all that kind of stuff in the trailer, which would give me a little bit more room to move around in the shop. So
that's kind of what I did with an enclosed trailer that I had once upon a time for my craft shows and custom work. I had some cabinetry, not like super involved stuff, but things that stored dedicated tools that I could keep in there. So whenever I did an installation or I went to a craft show and setting up my booth, I had everything that I needed. All I had to do was hook up and go. There was no hunting for the tools in my shop to take with me and make sure that I had whenever I needed to leave. But those enclosed trailers are really nice to have if you're able to afford one.
Yeah, that's a good setup, because then you never forget anything.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the biggest problems. You go to a job site, do an install, and you forget something pretty obvious, your screw gun or something like that. And depending on how far away that is, that can, take a good chunk of time and then a chunk of money too.
yeah, absolutely. So how did you move your shop, Paul?
So the first time was, if people have watched my YouTube videos going back to the time when the videos sucked pretty bad, I was down in the basement shop, and that was in Peabody, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. Tiny little basement shop, so I couldn't fit a ton of tools down there anyway. So that was kind of nice because I didn't have a ton of tools to move. So our tactic for that move was just getting a giant U-Haul truck and loading that up because I didn't have any big cabinet saw or workbenches or anything like that. So we just packed that thing tight. I think it was a 16-foot U-Haul, and we packed that thing with our household goods and the workshop because we're moving everything. Moved that down to Rhode Island, so that wasn't too far. And in Rhode Island, I had a full shop. That's when I started full-time woodworking. So bought a cabinet saw, built some workbenches, built a miter saw station. And this past year, we had to move out of that shop, move to D.C. And a lot smarter way this time because of all the stuff that we had. I'd been thinking ahead, so I got a mobile base on the table saw. Like as soon as I opened that package up, I put the mobile base on it before I even used it. The miter saw station was all built modular. Everything in the shop, the workbenches are all on wheels. So instead of the U-Haul truck last time, we used U-Pack cubes, or Relo cubes is the name of them. And it's basically like a pods system, but smaller cubes, so they're more adaptable to your situation. Like we were moving from an apartment and a shop, so we could get a couple cubes at the apartment, a couple cubes at the shop, and they could all combine them and move them all to the same spot. And they're really nice because they are on ground level. They're like 4 inches off the ground. There's a little lip. So all I had to do was put a tiny little ramp, and everything got pushed into the cubes. And I didn't have to kill myself trying to get a cabinet saw up inside of a box truck or anything. And yeah, I don't know. Made it a lot easier. They pick them up. You don't have to drive them. So they pick them up on a big flatbed truck with a forklift and load them up and drive them down and drop them off here. And then you just got to unload them. But it's a lot of planning ahead and anticipating things that makes it so much easier. And even in the move from the Rhode Island shop, I was ready for it and everything, but still I learned stuff moving because that was a bigger shop. Moving from there to DC, some stuff that I'll do for next time. And I actually built a new base for the miter saw station, so it's more modular and more adaptable and easier, and put wheels on it. So it'll be easier for next time. And I'm sure I'll learn stuff next time again.
How big are those like U-Pack cubes?
The cubes are, I think they're roughly 10 foot by 10 foot by 10 foot cube. They're a little bit smaller in certain dimensions, but roughly a cube shape like that. So smaller than the pods and stuff, but they really lended, for whatever reason, the dimensions really lended themselves well to fit everything in there. Like the table saw fit in like perfectly with a couple inches on either side and just stuff like that. The dimensions worked out exactly, like the queen size bed and stuff like that just fits in there really well.
Are they loaded up on the trailer much like the pods are, where they're lifted up, I guess, evenly on both sides where they don't tip either way and then loaded on the trailer?
It's similar. They don't have like the crane system that Pods uses. It's just like a Moffett forklift truck. If you ever gotten a lumber delivery or something, it's the forklift that mounts on the back of the flatbed truck. And they do pretty good with keeping those level. I think they kick back just a little bit so they don't fall off the fork truck. But they lift them straight up in the air and right onto the trailer and just drop them down flat.
Yeah, what I used whenever I was doing the epoxy flooring was Mobile Mini. But those really aren't designed for travel necessarily. Yeah. They're more like storage units, and when you're done with them, they come pick them up empty. So they drop them off empty, they pick them up empty. Because the way they'd have to drop them off is they back it in with a semi-trailer, and then it's basically just kind of pushed off the side, and the trailer tilts up hydraulically and puts the end on the concrete, and then the truck just kind of pulls away, and then the Mobile Mini just...
You just drop it.
Yeah, kind of. But the deal is, though, is that if it's packed and you're wanting to move it, that's how they have to load it back up. They have to pick up one end and drag back on the trailer. So everything's just going to go to one side. Not a good thing to use if you're wanting to move. But it was a great unit for storing, just for that time frame, to be able to do my epoxy floor.
How big was that?
Oh, let's see. This one was about a 10 by 10 by 20 or 25. It was pretty much the length of my driveway to the road, just shy of the road. And it was a lot cheaper than pods, not to mention that pods are not exactly theft proof. Yeah. The sides are pretty fragile and they can be cut open. But this Mobile Mini was all steel. And it was the corrugated steel. So that's one reason why I wanted it. I wanted it as secure as possible because I knew they were going to be in there probably a good week or 2 weeks while I got the floor done.
Yeah. The U-Pack is definitely bigger than what I thought it would be. For some reason, when I looked at them or even pictured them, I always thought they were just like, 3 feet by 3 feet or 3 by 5, like something small.
Yeah, I think they make a smaller version that's maybe like half sized of that, if I'm thinking right.
But also, every time I think about it, I also think about the U-Haul version of it, whatever that you can either move it yourself or they'll move it. But I think that's pretty small because it fits on like a little trailer you can pull behind. So it's definitely bigger than what I thought it was. So
yeah. I just looked up the dimensions. It's actually a little bit smaller. It's 7 by 7 by about 8.5 feet tall.
Still pretty good size. I mean, that's probably how I'll move my shop when I move again in a year or two.
Yeah.
I would, if I don't have an enclosed trailer, I mean, that's just the way to do it. I'm done with trying to like rent a U-Haul like 6 by 12 trailer and cram everything in there. I wouldn't even be able to fit it now. I would have to rent like a truck, and at that, then I have to figure out how to move one of my vehicles,
yeah,
because if I my truck wouldn't fit on any dolly. If I put my wife's car on like a car dolly or something, I'm gonna get like 2.3 miles to the gallon with pulling an SUV and have a truck loaded full of tools. So
yeah, that's the really nice stuff about the cubes is you don't have to drive them. So you can just drive your cars. You don't have to worry about it and don't have to worry about towing anything.
What's wrong with 2 miles a gallon?
Well, I mean, not a lot if you're just going down the street, but if you're going across the country.
That's probably what I got on the way down to DC because I got a little utility trailer. It's like a 5 by 10 and I tow that behind the Honda Element. And it's good for like pulling plywood and Adirondack chairs and kind of stuff like that. But the Element's not built for towing. So whenever we move, that thing is way overloaded. And it's just how it is, but it struggles.
If it could make noise, it'd be like,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the on-ramps are an adventure.
It's cursing at him. Yeah. You know what? That's how I'm been sweating pretty much. We're going to New Mexico. And actually, by the time you guys are listening to this, I would have just I'll be leaving tomorrow. Well, when you're listening to this, I'll be leaving tomorrow to go to New Mexico. And I'm going to be pulling a 33-foot travel trailer through the mountains. And it's going to be like right on the borderline of the max weight allowable for my vehicle to pull up through the mountains, 7,000 feet in elevation. I'm sweating it. I'm hoping I don't wreck or lose control of it. That would be very bad.
Pulling a travel trailer is like a whole different beast. Mm-hmm. It's like pulling a sail down the road.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. But I would say the biggest thing, if you can avoid moving your shop, do. It's a pain. How long did it take you to get it moved in, from the time you move this stuff into your shop to be like a functioning workshop again?
Probably killed 2 months at least, and that's because I planned ahead. So if I wasn't really thinking ahead and I didn't anticipate the move, it probably would have been even longer, 3-4 months. I don't know.
Yeah, I think mine ended up being about 3 or 4 months, and that's because I moved in and I had everything moved in, but I needed new cabinetry because I left my cabinetry in Texas, and the shop door, the garage door, wouldn't open. I had to have like the whole track replaced. I had to have the torsion spring system replaced and a new opener. And so like all that took several weeks to get set up and in place. And, so it moving definitely like it kills. Like don't think you're going to be able to move and like 2 or 3 days later be a functioning shop again, because you're going to have to get reorganized, or at least I do. I couldn't stand like, if I needed a clamp, like, oh, what box is that in? Where's that at? Like I had to get everything back up, put away before I could even like start building stuff.
Yeah, that's the move from the Boston shop down to Rhode Island was like that, because I didn't have really anything organized, because the other shop space I had was just stuck in a basement, and there was a workbench down there kind of on the wall, and I didn't really have any organization. Everything just went into boxes. Yeah. So in the Rhode Island shop, we just threw a bunch of boxes in there, and then I was like, I don't even know where to start. And the process of getting organized was moving stuff to get to something, and then all the stuff that you just moved is now in the way, so you got to move that back, and it's just weeks and weeks of doing that until you finally have it organized and everything has a place.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a pain, but each time you learn something.
Yeah, probably the biggest thing is like just adapting to the new space. So like moving into this shop, one of the big holdups was electrical power, because I didn't really have enough outlets and stuff in the garage. And I won't get into the whole story behind that, because that's a long story, but you got to get all the power requirements. If you have a 220 table saw, you got to make sure that the new space has that, and you can get everything plugged in and operating that you need. And you kind of need to do that before you start hanging stuff on the wall and all that, because they might need to pull wires and things.
Yeah, I had all new electrical, and let's see, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 15 new outlets ran, and then 24 feet of lights ran when I moved in. So it like that alone, right? And when you have an electrician come in and do it, electricians like to take their time when they do things. I'll be out tomorrow. I'll be out in a week, and it takes them 3 days to complete the job. So.
Yeah, they need the space too, so it's not like you can be in there working at the same time.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, that was a pain to get it all wired, and I already had everything in the shop, so I had to like move things around. I had to keep it in boxes just so it was easier to move, so they could go around and wire everything. I would say if you could get everything wired before you move anything into the shop, that's probably a lot easier and a lot quicker, especially if you can get that done and then go ahead and get your cabinets up or something like that, like wherever you're going to store your tools before you start actually pulling tools in. It's when you put everything in that space and you have to move it all around to get to it. I think eventually my wife and I had to pull everything out just so I could put it back in a somewhat organized fashion.
Yeah.
Here's a question, and then probably some people are thinking about this, is that whenever you go to move your shop, did you ever find yourself getting rid of some things that you didn't need or haven't touched in forever?
I had a couple of things like that. Like I had one of those benchtop belt disc sanders and burnt out a capacitor or something on it, and I'm like, I can fix that. That's not too hard. And I just never had time to do it. And I moved the thing with me, and I'm like, I want to fix it. And after like a couple months in DC of this thing sitting on the floor, I was like, I'm never gonna have time to fix it, and I don't want to move it again. So I just gave it away to another woodworker local to here, and I had a couple of pieces like that. It's just like, I don't want to move it again, so I'm just gonna get rid of it.
Yeah, so I'm like that. So I actually moved this stuff, and then like in the new shop, I'm like, I actually lost probably 150 square feet, and actually probably a little bit more than that. And so I downgraded a lot of stuff while I was here. I was like, I got this extra set of chisels that's still in the package, never been used. We're gonna go ahead and get rid of those, and a bunch of other stuff that just odds and ends that I wasn't using. A bunch of old hand planes And like those small things add up, especially when they're like difficult to store. So I'm going to try to downgrade before I move this time. So as I'm packing stuff, figure out, hey, like, have I used that in the last year or year and a half? If not, let it go. Like, when I need it again in 3 or 4 years, I'll just buy it again. Versus taking up the space.
That's kind of what I do. I kind of get rid of stuff as I pack it, not as I unpack it.
I did kind of play around with the numbers last time. Like, what if I just sell my bandsaw here and I'll buy a new one when I get to DC? But it just didn't make sense because you sell it at a loss because it's used, so it's discounted. And then when you buy the new one, depending on what you get, maybe you get it for cheaper or more. But you got to take that time to go and buy the new one, sell the old one, and it just didn't make any sense.
And get it set up exactly how you had the last one. And
yeah,
set up, man. You just turn it on right out of the box.
That's it.
Push the button.
You don't worry about it. Why is everything out of square?
What's this blade drift I see?
Something that helped out a ton in this last move was I came to visit the apartment before I moved here to tour the apartment and make sure that it was up to snuff and we wanted to live here. And it has a garage. So what I did, I spent most of the time, I got a laser distance measurer. So you basically just set that against the wall. You hit a button, and it gives you a measurement across the shop. So I could measure all the walls and stuff. So I had a little sketch pad, drew out the rough shape of the shop, measured all the wall-to-wall dimensions, and took that, and then on my computer drew it in SketchUp. And then I had a 3D model of the shop in SketchUp with exact dimensions. And before we even left the old shop, I had already put my tools in there virtually and moved them around to kind of get a rough layout of where I wanted them. And just spent a week or so thinking about it and kind of moving stuff around. And then once I kind of locked in where I wanted it, I was good for when we got here, and we could kind of roughly place this stuff. Instead of just unloading it and dumping it into the new space, we could kind of put the miter saw station and the table saw and stuff where they were going to go, so I didn't have to play that game of shuffling stuff around to get it out of the way to get stuff where it needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I've done that with my SketchUp. Is I got everything all virtually laid out. Every tool or jig that I've made, every apparatus in there that I've made, it's all kind of stored in SketchUp. So if I do move again, all I got to do is just recreate the shop space, the new shop space that I'm going to put stuff in, and then just drag and drop it.
Yeah.
So it'll save me a lot of time that way if I do move again.
Yeah, that's nice too, because you're already drawing stuff like your assembly table and whatnot. So all you have to do is take that drawing of the assembly table and drop it into the shop where you want it.
Yeah.
So your shop right now is attached to your apartment?
It is, yeah.
Single car, double car?
It's a 1-car garage. It's a little bit longer than a regular 1 car. But the last shop was like a 1.5, 2-car garage, so I lost about 50 square feet. So I think it's like 330 square feet now in this shop.
And was your last shop attached to your house as well?
It was not. It was an old mill building, so it was just a rental space, separate, like a commercial space. And it was actually a cool space. So it was an old textile mill in Rhode Island along a river, and shut down long ago. And it was sitting vacant for a while, and they decided to turn it into like a bunch of art studios. So the main mill building was subdivided into a bunch of different studios, and they rent it out, and there's painters and sculptors and glass blower in there and all sorts of stuff. And my shop was in the back. It was the old boathouse of the mill building. So it was right down by the river, just kind of its own separate little building just sitting back there.
Sounds like a pretty cool shop.
I was about to say that too.
I did not want to leave there. It was not by choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
It was good video fodder as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Now you got to fight the hustle bustle of DC.
Yeah.
Hey! Stop! Don't walk this way. Let me shoot this video real quick.
You walked in my shot. Thanks a lot.
That's the joke, is that I still live on a river, but it's a little bit bigger now. So the old shop was like a creek, and now I live on the Potomac. So it's Almost the same thing. But
I'd take the creek any day.
yeah.
Yeah. That's some good information. Moving definitely is a pain, but it can be done with very little stress if you just do some planning.
Yeah, I think the planning is what a lot of people don't. I don't think they take the time to consider. I think they're just dreading the move, especially a shop.
Yeah.
There's so much heavy stuff to move, and most of the time you're doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
So, I think the planning, especially like Paul said, is just utilizing things at your disposal that you have the ability to do, like SketchUp. And if you can do that planning ahead, unloading it later is going to make your life a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to give people reference too, I used the U-Pack cubes. We did a total of 4 of them for the entire move, and 2 of them was from my apartment, and 2 of them was for the shop. So the shop takes up a ton of space and also a ton of weight. So it takes a lot of planning ahead. Like you're worrying about moving your bed and your furniture and all that too, but then you got the shop on top of that. It gets tricky.
Mm-hmm. I'll just sleep on my table saw.
Throw your mattress on it. There you go.
I considered it. So
pile of sawdust on top. I don't even need a mattress.
You just live on there like a hamster.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
All right. Well, that was some good info. Do we have anything more we want to add to that before we close out?
If anybody wants to see more details on my move, I did make a video about it, kind of showing the process and maybe a little bit more detail on kind of how I did it. That's from, I think, July of last year, 2017. And then if people want to go back in my Instagram, too, I had a bunch of photos of the whole packing process.
I've also got some video from my earlier videos, like first 10, whenever I packed up the shop for my epoxy floor. So guys can check that out if you need to as well. Okay. Well, before we close out, we want to remind you that if you listen to the show on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, and it'll help us reach a greater audience. We need those ratings to kind of help boost our, availability in the finding search, so people can find all of our episodes that we've done in the past, and be sure and share them around. So, Paul, for the people that are listening now, if they haven't heard of you before, how do they go about contacting you?
If you haven't heard of me before, shame on you, but you can go to jackmanworks.com and you'll get caught up pretty quick. And Jackman Works on YouTube and Instagram and anywhere else you want to find me.
See, we asked Jimmy DeResta this question too, and he said, "Just Google me." That's all you got to do.
Just yell his name loud enough, and you'll find him.
One DeResta will answer. They'll know how to find me.
Somebody will know.
Well, if you want to get in contact with Jeremy, Sam, or myself, we each have our own respective websites, which is countrysideworkshop.com, samryandesigns.com, and rhwoodshop.com. We all have contact information there. If you want to get in contact with the Woodshop 101 podcast crew, as well as the guest host that we had at the time that you're inquiring, you can email us at kickback@woodshop101podcast.com. We also have a voicemail number that you can call. You can leave us feedback and be featured on the show, which is 409-234-3959. Also, a voice memo app on your phone is also good to use. The clarity is outstanding. So you can record your feedback there, questions, whatever, and send them to the email that I just mentioned. So that about wraps it up. Paul, we want to thank you for coming on again, man. It was sure a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah.
You always have great info to share, and he is going to be on our after show for you patrons of the show, so you'll be able to hear a little bit more about what we were talking about earlier with the lacquer thinner and spray guns and all that stuff. So be sure and check it out. So from Paul, Jeremy, the absent Sam, and myself, we want to wish you guys well. Please be safe in your shops, and we will talk to you on the next podcast episode. So 1, 2, 3, boom!